In the news tonight, hundreds of delegates and officials arrive for the first AfriCaribbean Investment Forum, which starts here tomorrow. Investigations continue into last night's fatal shootings. Barbadians told they can help in the planning of Copover 2023. And in sports, Barbados Royals and TKR play the inaugural Women's CPL T20.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. Thank you so much for tuning in. In our top story tonight, over 1,000 delegates and officials have arrived in Barbados ahead of the first AfriCaribbean Investment Forum at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre. They were officially welcomed at the Grantley Adams International Airport. Trevor Thorpe was there.
The conference has been described as historic and a game changer, bringing people from across Africa and the CARICOM together to do business. Minister of State in Foreign Trade and Business, Sandra Husbands, says there will be investment opportunities in CARICOM for African investors to consider and similar openings for Caribbean investors to do business in Africa.
What this is doing is seeking to bring from across Africa, together with CARIFORUM and CARICOM countries, people who are interested in doing business together. There are going to be investment opportunities here in CARICOM that African entrepreneurs and investors can consider. There are going to be opportunities in Africa where CARICOM investors can relocate their production, because perhaps producing it here in bulk and shipping it may not be as competitive as actually locating some production there.
The minister has called for more community engagements and wants schools to be included.
That means that we look at school exchanges. We start looking at using technology to bring communities to talk with each other and to engage with each other culturally. Because unless you do the engagement on the ground, all the planning by policymakers and by government officials will not translate into active business, because it is people who have to know, trust each other and be exposed to each other's culture and goods. This is what will make the difference.
Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Incorporated, Jens Trainhart, says Barbados and the African continent share cultural ties, and the forum will be exploring them.
We're looking to strengthen the ties with the African countries to drive tourism. I mean, we welcome tourists from the UK, from Canada, from the US, from Europe, our Caribbean neighbors and Latin America. And I think there's huge opportunities to also drive visitation from Africa. And I think what makes this so unique and powerful is the cultural connections and the heritage that binds Barbados and Africa.
Over 135 delegates are attending the AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2022, which opens tomorrow at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre and ends on Saturday. Trevor Thorpe, CBC News.
Well, Barbadians are being told they will have a say in choosing next year's Grand Kadooment route. The announcement was made at a post-Cropover press conference this afternoon. Anne-Marie Bailey has those details.
Barbadians now have the opportunity to shape Cropover 2023 through a survey available to the public. This was revealed earlier today by Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Senator Dr. Chantal Munro-Knight, during a post-Cropover press conference. The survey link, which will be publicized via the media, is live and ready to be accessed.
We will be releasing a survey to the public that will ask the public to input on the new route for Cropover for 2023. That survey will target three audiences. One, the actual masqueraders who would have paraded on the day. It will target as well vendors and as well Barbadians who would participate, so that Barbadians, masqueraders, vendors can have a say in terms of that new route.
Minister Knight notes the festival is more than the big events.
The Cropover Festival is a myriad of different events. Most of us focus on Kadooment, and the big events where, multiple and thousands of people converge. But it's the National Cultural Foundation. It's not the National Carnival Foundation. It's not the National Entertainment Foundation. And so that the plethora of events and stakeholders that are involved in the festival is large. It's a national festival. And in that context, we want to be sure that for 2023, we have a festival that is, again, as inclusive in terms of its design as we can make it. We are cognizant that we will continue to work with all of the stakeholders, like I said, the band leaders, etc., that we've walked with through 2022, and we'll continue to talk to them to 2023.
It was also revealed that a study assessing the economic impact of the festival will be completed by October this year. Anne-Marie Bailey, CBC News.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Well, the winners of the various the crop and tune of the crop their prizes today in a brief presentation ceremony. It was held at the offices of Picardy Crop title sponsors Courtesy Garage. John Yard, Roger Gittins and the songwriting duo Water Street Boys received their prizes for Best Nation Building Song, Best Songwriter of the Festival, respectively. Calypso monarch Kwan also received his prize of a check worth $100,000. Now, he's studying, so his mother, Tanya White, accepted the prize on his behalf. Then it was the turn of those who took the top spots in the tune of the crop competition. Joint third-place winners Jaguar de Champ and Sadis are taking home $2,000. Sadis, who was represented by manager Ingrid Holder. For second place, Lilrick earned $5,000. Bruce Lee Almighty received a massive trophy and $7,500 after his song Mobby lit up the road on Kadooment Day. The service had a busy night responding to 3 separate shootings that left 2 dead and 1 other injured. In this report from Shane Jones.
The first occurred in the area of Kings Gap, Eagle Hall, St. Michael around 6:25 p.m. Police say several gunshots were reportedly heard before the victim, Gerard Jones-Cox, was discovered motionless in the front passenger seat of a vehicle outside the front door of his home. Jones-Cox was identified by close family members. Hours later, around 10:06 p.m., the second fatal shooting at Redmond's Gap, Westbury Road, St. Michael was recorded. Police who arrived at the scene discovered the motionless body of a man. He has since been identified as 43-year-old Ramal Trotman of the same community. Acting Assistant Superintendent of Police attached to the Criminal Investigations Department, Vernon Farrell, told CBC News the situation is worrying and asked for the public's assistance.
This concerns us greatly, but I promise you that we are putting our best effort into having these matters investigated. And again, we greatly depend on the assistance of the public in these matters. It is something which touches each and every one, and one life lost is one life too many. So we're really counting on the support of the public.
Shane Jones, CBC News.
A 25-year-old man was also shot and injured around 6:30 at Endeavour near Orange Hill in St. James. Police say he was shot by another man while standing outside of a residence at that same location. The victim was transported to a medical facility by private transport. He was reported to be in stable condition and had undergone surgery. Well, coming up on Newsnight, a disaster management communications boost just in time for the hurricane season. There's an effort underway to avoid a repeat of what happened during Hurricane Elsa after major communication blackouts, which slowed down the response of the Barbados Light and Power Company, leaving several communities in the dark for days. The utility company has invested in a new level of communications. They've made a significant donation of VHF hand radios to the Department of Emergency Management to be used by district emergency organizations and its officers on the ground. DEO officials tested the system yesterday at the BLPC's Garrison headquarters. This VHF system is more reliable and will ensure DEOs can communicate with the power company and their teams out in the field, as well as other emergency officials in the event of an impact by a weather system. Johan Graves, the Director of Operations at the power company, explains that this is a necessary step to ensure communication is secured at all levels.
What we can assure you is that we have prepared all of our systems and have our systems in a state of readiness that we can respond to any eventuality that comes to us. Our hope, obviously, will be able to improve based on what would have happened last year. We've done reviews of what would have occurred look at the shortcomings, see put different systems in place. And what we saw here today demonstrated here was one of the things that we came up with, things that we could have put in place. So we've actually added another communication channel so that we can receive information faster. But to say definitively that next time it could be shorter, we don't know, because we don't know what the nature of that event would be.
Meanwhile, consultant Selwyn Brooks explains how the DEO's response will be improved after some of the lessons learned during Hurricane Elsa.
There was deficiencies in the system where we could not have communicated with persons because we did not have that level of equipment that we can transmit. If we are now going to repeat with this year's hurricane season, and if something happens, we have been able to improve on that with the donation of the radios. The donation of the radios and the training that the DOs would have received over the last year has significantly improved our connectivity and our communication, not only between the DEM and the DOs, but between the DOs themselves as they traverse their respective communities.
The criteria for discharge from COVID-19 isolation is changing. Effective tomorrow, September 1st, the Ministry of Health and Wellness states an individual will be cleared for discharge on day 7 from a positive COVID-19 PCR test result. Initially, it was 10 days. In a statement, the ministry notes the individual must be asymptomatic or showing improving symptoms for 3 days prior to discharge. Now, if the individual remains symptomatic, isolation must be extended for a full 10-day period with no further testing required to exit isolation. Meanwhile, there were 147 new COVID-19 cases. Those are recorded from the 614 tests conducted yesterday by laboratories across the island. The cases consisted of 19 people under the age of 18 and 128 who were 18 years and older. The number of people in isolation facilities was 83, while 1,379 were in home isolation. An 83-year-old man died as a result of the virus yesterday. So as at August 30th, there were 542 COVID-19 related deaths. The Biocultural Education and Research Program has launched a new children and adult coloring book. It's part of an effort to embrace the Barbadian community and engage in knowledge sharing. It's called Yabise Guada. The book, with its indigenous Kalinago name meaning tree garden, seeks to reconnect adults and children as it highlights the importance of plants. Several copies were presented to officials and special guests. Lanor Aline, a renowned mixed media artist, during the book launch held at the Daphne Joseph Hackett Theatre. Executive Director Dr. Sonia Peter says through education and research, her team modeled the local plant biodiversity to explore the many platforms of relevance.
The beauty in the narratives that abound in village life and the texture of nature form the basis of the coloring book we present here today. For us, this is more than a coloring book, as each plant image is accompanied by a snapshot of community, a snapshot of life and living with plants in the backyard, hanging over the paling and the bush around the house. This effort falls into our platform of art and biodiversity with an underpinning philosophy of plants and ancestry.
Barbadians are being told not to neglect nor discount the importance and value of local vegetation and flora. This from Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office with responsibility for culture, Sharon Drayton. She says with increased development, there is less use of plants.
There is no doubt that it's critical to promote biocultural heritage and its acute role in adapting to climate change. It is therefore necessary to have platforms such as this tonight, where persons can share their works, and have other platforms where younger generations can gain the knowledge and also be educated. And of course, you know, the coloring books and so on are not just for the children, they're for the adults too.
The Business Report, brought to you with the compliments of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
Zipay, one of the world's fastest growing financial technology firms based in Ghana, after investing and launching its service in Barbados, has its eyes set on expanding in the Caribbean. Co-founder and Chief Executive Officer Andrew Takiapia says they have already pumped a significant sum of money into Barbados. Zipay will be investing close to $1 million in the interim. Mr. Takiapia says the company is looking at over 5 additional markets.
So even if we're doing about $1 million in each market, that's about $5 million already. In terms of employment, I think that the thing about mobile financial services is that when it takes off, it employs a lot of people. Let me just use Ghana as an example. In Ghana alone, the agent network is about 360,000 agents. Okay, and these are all third parties that are able to generate employment for themselves. So I think that it's significant what we'll be able to do here. As a company, today we have about 180 staff across the world. So I believe that we'll be adding more to the numbers from Barbados and becoming a significant employer in this market as well.
Mr. Tapiakia has welcomed efforts by Barbados Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley to link Africa and the Caribbean. He expects trade to be deepened through the first ever AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum that opens tomorrow on island.
Out of tomorrow, you're going to see deepening of innovations from financial services. You're going to see a deepening of trade activities from Africa into Caribbean. But what I also like is the fact that Barbados and other Caribbean countries will follow suit. I hope that your RAM in itself will come into our market apart from other things.
The first scheduled flights to Barbados from Africa could come from Ghana. Word of this from Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Incorporated, Jens Trainhard. He made the comment as the first Ethiopian Airlines flight landed at the Granley Adams International Airport today. The flight brought African officials and delegates for that first AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum, which starts, as you heard, here tomorrow.
Well, I think we're looking at West Africa. I think, as you know, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Motley, is focusing on Ghana. There have been visitation where the African delegation from Ghana came here, and versus also that delegation from Barbados visited Ghana. And there are other, obviously, countries as well that have been visited as well. So I think it's overall, but I think there's obviously a strong connection with Ghana.
Let's head back over to the sports studio now and hand it back over to Mark.
Thank you very much. We're going to start with some swimming, where Barbadian Adara Stoddard didn't make the semifinals of the women's 100-meter freestyle at the 8th FINA Championships, World Championships. That should be in Lima, Peru. Stoddard finished 7th in Heat 6 out of lane number 8 with a time of 1 minute, 1.43 seconds. She was 35th overall out of 70 swimmers in 9 heats. Meantime, Barbadian Jake Chiatau will be in heat number 2 in the men's 200-meter butterfly. That event will be on Sunday. Switching now to basketball, where there were wins for our hosts, Police Sports Club and Station Hill Cavaliers, when the BABA Club Challenge Tournament continued at Bay Street. Police outscored Senators in a highly competitive matchup, while ACS United were no match for the Cavs. CBC's Damian Best reports.
Doubleheader at the Police Sports Club on Bay Street. Station Hill Cavaliers versus ACS United in black. Cavaliers with numbers after the steal, first bucket of the contest. In fact, ACS were non-existent in the first quarter, outscored 23-4. They forgot about Stefan Otley. That's 3. Beautiful stroke, had 12 points in the contest. Otley was a man in rhythm. Different angle, absolute sugar. Cavs on a roll. Marginal improvements for ACS in the second quarter. Andre Morris, pull-up jumper from deep, nailed it. More of that needed as they trail 14-49 at halftime. Second half business, only Morris seemed to enjoy his time on the court. Contested shot, nothing but net. In case the scorers wanted to know, That's 3 points. No doubt about it. But this is a team sport, and United, without a solid defensive effort, meant that the Cavs were cruising. Fast break here. Gavin Phillips with the layup. Game high 21 points. The mission complete in the end. ACS United blown away by the Cavs. 80-30. Zachary Cave getting the friendly roll to seal the deal. Second matchup, Senators in red and black playing host Police Sports Club. Kaya Dial with the up fake, gets to the hole and finishes. 19 points in the till. Even Stevens in the first quarter. Police going to their big unit, Jamario Clark. You're not stopping that train. Pockets the 2. Had 13 points in the game. Locked at 9 in the first quarter. But Police pulling away in the second. Dario Cumberbatch using that high, team high 16 points. They were surgical at times as well, moving the rock. Cumberbatch, window of opportunity, takes it deep 2. Then Jamali Holder, solo effort, goes around the defender, uses the backboard. Police 29, Senators 21. Let's go second half, switch of ends. And the Senators were working hard to erase the deficit. Dell, key to the effort. Fall, headed to the line. Will sink the first, but missed the second. The visitors coming close. However, Police Sports Club would eventually pull away down the stretch, going on to win 60-49 over the Senators.
That's where we end our news for tonight. So on behalf of the entire team, thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.
Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.